Today, we need to talk about what's happening inside a Northern California jail, a place where a tragic and alarming pattern has emerged. Just listen to these words from Michelle Gallagher, whose brother died in custody. Her words just cut right to the heart of this entire crisis. The people dying, they were never sentenced to death.
So that brings us to the big question, right? What is going on inside the Shasta County jail? To really get a handle on this, we've got to start by looking at the numbers.
Okay, so let's dig into the data that first started ringing all the alarm bells.
So, back in 2020, a big investigation compared all of California's county jails by size. And what they found was, well, it's pretty stark. Among jails with a similar number of bookings, Shasta County had the second highest number of inmate deaths. It's not just a little higher. It's a massive, troubling outlier.
And you might think, okay, maybe that's just a historical thing. But it's not. The data shows this crisis has actually been getting worse. The number of deaths pretty much doubled in the 7 years leading up to 2020. This isn't an old problem. It's a trend that's picking up speed.
But here's the statistic that is just absolutely shocking. It's the reason people are dying. In Shasta County's jail, a staggering 65% of the deaths were suicides. 65%. I mean, to put that in perspective, you look at a massive system like Los Angeles County, and that number is only 13%. This means Shasta has the highest share of suicide deaths in the entire state.
But you know, these are not just numbers on a chart. Behind every single one of those statistics is a real person, with a family left behind just desperate for answers. So let's talk about that, the human cost of all this.
This is Angelina Odell. Her brother's name was John Adina, and he died in that jail back in 2019. And for months, his family was told basically nothing, just left completely in the dark.
And John's story's it's every family's worst nightmare. I mean, this was a guy who used to be a firefighter. He gets arrested in a state of confusion, and his family believed he clearly needed mental health help, not a jail cell. A judge even saw that and ordered an evaluation. But he died before that could even happen. And for 9 long months, his family got no official explanation why.
And the thing is, John's death wasn't a one-off. Not at all. During that same time frame, you have other really disturbing deaths raising huge questions. You've got a man dying from untreated pneumonia, another from a meth overdose while guards were allegedly laughing, and a man with schizophrenia who died from complications of constipation, something completely treatable.
So you have to ask, right, what's the official explanation for all this? Well, officials will tell you it's a system that is just buckling under immense pressure.
They point to a few key things. First, there's this state policy called realignment, which basically shifted more serious long-term inmates from state prisons down to county jails. Then you've got the fact that a lot of people are coming in with really serious drug, alcohol, or health problems to begin with. And here's a big one. There's a huge lack of dedicated mental health facilities out in the community, so the jail becomes this de facto psychiatric ward. And on top of all that, you have correctional officers who are just burned out from working these crazy 12-hour shifts with mandatory overtime.
And if you want to understand just how big this mental health problem is inside the jail, just think about this, 30%. As of early 2020, nearly a third of everyone in there was on psychiatric medication. A third. The jail has basically been forced to become a mental health institution, and that's a role it was never, ever designed to fill.
So you have all these explanations, but the deaths didn't stop. They kept happening. And that, of course, prompted new investigations.
And this is the official record, right from the sheriff's office reports. We're talking 5 more deaths in just over a year. Look at the causes. Accidental fentanyl overdoses, natural causes, and there it is again, suicide by hanging. The deadly pattern just kept on going.
This latest string of deaths, 4 people dead in just 9 months, that was the breaking point. It finally triggered a major response. In 2024, the Shasta County grand jury officially launched an investigation into what was going on in that jail.
And this investigation really gets to the core of the whole debate, the central conflict. Are these just tragic, unavoidable accidents, or are they preventable failures of the system?
So what did the grand jury find? Well, in their 2025 report, they came to a pretty stark conclusion. They said the responsibility wasn't with the jail. No, they put it squarely on the inmates themselves, saying the deaths were due to their lifestyles.
And that right there, that sets up 2 completely different, competing stories. You have the official finding from the grand jury that blames inmate lifestyles and their risk-taking behaviors. And then you have critics who are saying, no,
These deaths are a direct result of officers not doing their jobs and failing to follow mandatory jail procedures.
So what exactly is this procedure everyone is arguing about? It's something called a security and welfare check. And in California, this isn't a suggestion, it's the law. It means officers have to physically and visually check on every single inmate for a few seconds each time to make absolutely sure they're alive, breathing, and not in distress. We're not talking about a quick peek through a window. It's a real check.
And to make their case, critics point to the absolutely tragic story of Jonathan Hurtado. He died from a fentanyl overdose. Now get this, his housing unit was on lockdown for 24 hours before he was found. He was in his cell the whole time. Critics allege that when he was finally discovered, he'd been dead for roughly 10 hours. He was described as being ice cold. For them, this is the smoking gun. It's proof, they say, that those legally required hourly checks just weren't being done.
So, here's where we're at. We have this horrific pattern of deaths, and we have two completely conflicting stories about who's to blame. So, where does that leave us?
Well, according to experts like Michael Hackett, who used to manage a jail in California, deaths like these, from suicides, overdoses, even illnesses, they aren't just an unavoidable part of jail life. He says that, as a general rule, most of these kinds of deaths can be prevented. The key? Really intensive, good supervision.
And that leaves us, and this community, with a huge fundamental question. When a person is in the custody of the public, in the care of the state, and they die, who is responsible? Where does that responsibility lie? Because the answer to that question really defines everything.